Welcome to Zero Experience Required. Today we're working on part 3 of our baking sugar cookies and decorating them with royal icing. Today I will be teaching you how to decorate your cookies with royal icing. This tutorial is for our group at church, and we are teaching women how to decorate sugar cookies today, but you can learn how to bake sugar cookies in part 1 of this series and how to make royal icing in part 2. You can check out the link below and it will direct you on to our other tutorials. Welcome today to our exciting event. I hope you have a wonderful time and learn to love decorating sugar cookies with royal icing. Okay, so here are all of the, well, not all of the sugar cookie shapes, but several sugar cookie shapes. And I was just going to kind of give you a quick tutorial on how to use the royal icing. Sorry, I keep shaking it. I hit the cord on this. So let me move that cord out of the way. So let's start with holding your piping bag. To hold your piping bag, you kind of want to just fold it over like this so that no frosting escapes out of the top when you squeeze it. And I kind of like to hold it like that, or you can twist it like that, and then you can squeeze, hold it, twist it shut with your thumb and squeeze it with your hand. So you can choose. This is my outline, so I'm just going to outline my tree. Your outline does not have to be amazingly perfect. And actually, you know what? I have brown for the... You do want to make sure that you don't go off the edge of your cookie, just because that means that it might flood off the side. So if you kind of go off, just add to it. This border also doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. You know, you'll see some YouTubers that it just looks amazing because they're using a tip while they're doing it. We're not using a tip. And it's also just to hold our flooding. The flooding will look smooth and you won't really see the outline so much on here. So don't worry about it too much. You do need to give it a few seconds to kind of harden up. You'll notice if you look at it, it goes from being kind of shiny and glossy to a little bit dull. And that's how you know it's hardening up. Okay? Next, we're going to flood it. And this is the frosting that we added a little bit more water to. So to do the flooding, you're just going to kind of fill in every area. You'll notice it's a lot liquidier than the last stuff we just used, the outline. You can use too much of this, so you do need to be a little bit careful. Use less, and then if you need to add more, add more. Take your toothpick and kind of just push it over to the corners and fill in any little gaps. Okay. Another thing you can do is kind of shake your cookie a little bit to get that flooding to move around. Now, this flooding has some unique properties. It's really wet right now, so if I put anything on top of it, it would kind of sink into it, and then it would be kind of homogeneous with it. It would just look like it was part of the original frosting. So if you want something to pop and be an extra layer of emphasis, you're going to want to let this dry. So you can set it to the side and let it dry, or if you want it to kind of sink in there and look cool, you definitely can. So it's up to you however you choose to decorate. I'm going to show you the technique where the flooding mixes so that you can kind of see what it looks like. So I'm going to add some ornaments with my red flood, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a few dots, and as you watch, the dots will become homogeneous with the green, and it'll just look like it was part of it. Now again, if you want it to have the extra depth where it's kind of sticking off of there, wait and don't put it on while it's still wet. So you can see it's just kind of melting into the green. Now, another fancy technique that you can do, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for the tree, but since I have it on here, I am going to show it to you, is kind of making a swirl pattern. So you just take your toothpick and you can just kind of go up and down like that. You can swirl it like this. You just kind of get some interesting color blends. This is a little bit more interesting if you have more than 2 colors. But if you want to go a little fancy, there's the way to do it. If you look at it and you're like, oh, I think it needs a little bit more of that other color, just add some more in. So that's how you do the swirl and adding things while it's flooding. When you're doing the outline like we are, see how it's holding that frosting in and so nothing's getting on this trunk down here? So I can go ahead and decorate the trunk now. When you have a small space like that, you can also just use the outline frosting as the fill too, as the flood, because it's not very full. So just take your toothpick and kind of spread it out. But all of your cookies are going to need at least 30 minutes to kind of set. If you watch this cookie, you'll notice that the sheen, the shininess on it just slowly kind of goes away. And you'll be able to tell when they are ready because they will have a matte finish. They'll look kind of dull, and they'll kind of just have a crust to them. But you know, they really need about 2 or 3 hours to really firm up, but you can definitely decorate a few and eat them. They'll just be a little bit runny probably. Now, these gingerbread men are unique because you can actually make 2 different things with them. So you can make a gingerbread man, or you can make a reindeer. So they're kind of versatile. You can decide how you want to decorate them. So I decided that shape didn't really work for me. I'm just going to wipe it off. Not a big deal. So what I'm doing is I'm making an outline for the nose right now, and that way when I flood with the brown color, it will keep this space clean, and it won't go inside the nose. So I'm just going to make the nose first. Just add a little bit of this flood color. You can kind of spread it with the tip. I wouldn't do it too much though because it kind of dries out. And we all have to use these bags, so just use your toothpick to kind of spread it out for the most part. I'm going to add eyes to this reindeer, but I need to wait until it dries a little bit better because I want it to kind of be more dimensional and stick out a little bit more. So I'm just going to set that aside and do the gingerbread man. Now, don't be worried if your hand shakes or the line's not perfect. Again, it does not matter. It will be covered up anyway when we do the flood. Again, I want to add decorations on top of that, so I'm going to let that dry. If your tip gets kind of clogged, just kind of squeeze it till a little bit comes out and then it'll be open again. Now, the reason I did the red first was to set up some borders here so I don't actually have to outline on that side of my frosting. I just have to outline right here so it doesn't flood off the edge, but this outline that I made in red is going to hold the white inside for this snowman. And then I'm going to make a little white pom-pom on the top here, at the top of my hat. And then I'm also going to kind of decorate my hat. And remember how I talked about with the Christmas tree about putting the flood color in and mixing it up to make these squirrels? This time I'm going to use my outline color so that it stays a little bit more in the shape that I want to put it in. I'm going to put little snowflakes on my hat. So anyway, it's one thing you can do to kind of fancy it up, or you could wait until after it's dried a little bit and put it on top of it again if you want more texture, if you want it to kind of blend in. And then if you don't want any little pokes or points on like these little dots that I made, just kind of blend it in with the toothpick. When you're covering a large space like this, it's good to just kind of shake your cookie out a little bit to kind of level it out so you don't have any thin spots, because that spot right there looks a little thin. So you can either spread it out with your toothpick or shake it a little bit. Okay, I'm going to let that set before I put on a nose or eyes or the little buttons. And before I start on my Santa one, I wanted to add some sprinkles, or nonpareils is what they're actually called, to my Christmas tree to pretend like they're little lights on my tree. But I also wanted to set up a little bit so they didn't sink into it. So while it's still a little bit wet, I'm going to add some of these nonpareil sprinkles to it. And we are going to have a sprinkle station that you can go to put sprinkles on your cookies if you want to. You don't need cookies or sprinkles on your cookies, but they sure don't hurt anything. So, next we're going to do Santa. Santa's a little tricky. I did not make any flesh color frosting for this demonstration, and you know, I will make a little bit for the day of, but you don't really need it, because what you can do is just leave it the cookie color and just kind of leave a little rectangle for his face. And so we're just going to start by making the beard. And so his beard would kind of go up a little bit like that to go over his mouth and back up. Okay. He's going to have a white pom-pom here on his hat. And he's going to have a white trim at the bottom of his hat. So you kind of have to think about it and visualize how it's going to look as you're typing it out. And this is where being creative helps, but also this cookie isn't an outline, which makes it easier to figure out what it's supposed to look like. Again, remember when you have a large area like that, it's really easy to want to overfill it, but that's when it can overflow on the sides and spill over. Okay, nothing fancy. There's Santa. I'm not saying it's great. Again, these are for eating. Doesn't matter. Ah, great. Okay. So let's try this the other way for the reindeer eyeballs. Let's start with white and then add a little black. So it's had a little bit of time to set up. It's losing some of its shininess, some of that sheen. So this shouldn't sink in as easily. I mean, it might still sink in, but not quite as much.
I'm making buttons.
Oh, buttons. Thank you for joining us and learning how to decorate sugar cookies. I hope you had a wonderful time. You are welcome to come back and visit these videos as many times as you need to learn how to bake your sugar cookies, make the royal icing, and for tips and tricks on how to decorate. Thanks again. Bye.